All right, everyone. He's back again with another live stream. Are you kidding me? Tommo, you call yourself a YouTuber? Yeah, I'm live all the time. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming. There's been a bit of an update, hasn't there? Seemingly today. Nothing kind of ground shaking. Nothing massively changing what we already kind of thought we knew about the current Piastri, Ricciardo, Alpine, McLaren contract saga. But it seems it's being reported by numerous sources. Autosport is one that I trust. Okay, there's a lot of stuff gets put out into the ecosphere, but typically Autosport don't, report on things unless they're pretty, solidified. And it seems that Ricciardo has been informed by McLaren that they intend to replace him with Oscar Piastri for 2023. Which, given what we've heard about Oscar, given hearing the Williams announcements, can't be a huge surprise. But there's been some more information. So Autosport are reporting, as we can see here. I don't know why my transition isn't working properly. That's weird. Anyway, from Adam Cooper. Big up, Adam. Basically, what you can see at the top, McLaren set to end Ricciardo's 2023 F1 has officially been told that they intend to replace him with Oscar Piastri. So, I mean, in here, there's nothing too much adding in this article in regards to what's going on. But then also, it is also being reported by Racing 365, that's the wrong screen, there we go, that basically hang on, I'll just show you. So this is on Racing 365, and essentially the most interesting piece of information here is to do with the FIA's contract recognition board. It's said to have validated Piastri's new contract with McLaren at the expense of an existing deal to Alpine. Now, obviously, this doesn't seem... I don't know the validity of Racing 365. I've heard of the website. Obviously, they're not on Autosport. They're not as big. But it seems to make sense. The fact that Piastri has come out with such a bold statement around this, that he won't be driving for Alpine next year, tells me that this contract is pretty solid, pretty well-rounded, pretty in place. A lot of conflation there. Maybe, Luke, maybe. But again, it ties in to the fact that Piastri has made this big statement. And this is huge, This is a kid who's not, raced in F1 before. And he's, these are mad moves. He's turning down a guaranteed F1 seat. And again, it appears that Ricciardo has now been told. It appears that, I think Minton's got into the next door's garden and Hannah's calling him. Badminton. Put badminton in chat as he keeps going in the neighbour's garden. So that seems all but confirmed now. So unfortunately, it's kind of it's the news that we all thought was coming, and again, we haven't had official confirmation from any of the teams. But when Autosport are writing articles on it, it seems like it's a done deal. And again, for Piastri to make such a... Not only to make the statement... Because the thing is, right, Alpine do their announcement. Oscar doesn't have to say anything publicly. But as soon as you put that in the public domain, it's out there. Now, obviously, Alpine put it in the public domain, probably because they felt a bit desperate that they could because it feels like they're on the back foot in terms of this contract situation. Again, from what's being reported, it seems that Alpine are on the back foot. So they've tweeted that out of some kind of sense of desperation to get it done. And look, there's clearly a deal in place with McLaren, and it looks like it's going to go through. Now, by the way, when I say what I mean by officially, again, check the Autosport article. I've got it, hang on, got it here on screen. Has officially told Daniel, why is it wobbling? What is that pulsing going on my screen? Officially told Daniel Ricciardo that intends, and this is reported by Autosport. So I trust this news. That's all I'll say. I trust this news. So yeah. Now it's very much, we've got to think that Piastri's looking like it's done. The problem for McLaren is that this is an expensive decision. In fact, you've got to say that as much as Daniel Ricciardo has not had the best time since he's left Red Bull, on track he's not had the best time. In his bank account, he's had a fantastic time. He got paid stacks at Renault. He got paid absolute stacks. Did a very good job in his second year, but didn't stay on. But got paid absolute money, right? He's gone to McLaren, being paid money. And it seems, again, like all the conversation, all the talk around Daniel Ricciardo, it's up to him whether he wants to race in 2023, blah, blah, blah. Well, if they're going to force the Piastri deal through, we are potentially faced with a scenario we have seen before where a driver has been paid to not race for a team. That's the potential we're seeing here. This isn't confirmed, but it seems from everything we've heard and the fact that it's been like the ball's in Daniel's court, well, if they want to force him out of that seat and someone else in, they'd have to pay him off. Which is very similar to what happened back in 2010 when Kimi Raikkonen was due to race for Ferrari, but Fernando Alonso became available after he went back to Renault because he was McLaren, then Renault. Then he became available a year earlier than they initially planned to sign Fernando. So they wanted him for 2010, but Kimi was already signed. So they paid Kimi to not race, basically. They had to, there was a contract there. They had to pay the contract. It's like your phone contract, right? If you want to end your phone contract early, you got to pay it off. And this is what happened with Kimi Raikkonen in 2010. He ended up spending, 2 years in WRC, then came back with Lotus, which is now Alpine. Interesting, though. So that happened. And we could be again faced with that scenario again, and potentially as well, if Ricciardo. This is what's different to the Kimi story, because Kimi was out of Formula One entirely for 2010 and 2011. He wasn't in the sport at all. He was doing WRC. But we could be faced with Ricciardo racing for another team, whether he goes back to Alpine. At the moment, the silly season, there's talk about any and all teams, right? You could see him go to a rival team, be that Alpine, be that Haas, be that whoever, and still be getting paid by McLaren, which is mad. But the thing is as well, McLaren, this will come no surprise to McLaren, right? This whole situation came as a big surprise to Alpine. But at the end of the day, McLaren have been the ones who have been, clearly tapping up Oscar Piastri. Not that they're not allowed to, but they're the ones who have been knocking on that door. They're the ones who have been, I'm sure Piastri's camp with Webber, manager, has been pushing for that move. But at the end of the day, McLaren know what they're doing. They know they want the driver. And they would have known that if they wanted Piastri for 2023, he's going to want a race seat. He's not going to want to sit on the sidelines for another year. And that would mean they'd have to pay off Ricciardo. So this is a big roll of the dice from McLaren on a driver, because Oscar Piastri, not just his contract, but paying off Daniel Ricciardo to get him in that seat for 2023 is going to cost them a huge amount of money. But they're banking on Piastri Norris being something special for years to come. Which, listen, right? Look, it could be amazing. In fact, let's go back to the main screen. It could be so amazing because I literally, where did I save it? Yeah, there we go. Boom. This is an exciting prospect right here. Okay, it's a little Photoshop I did. This is an exciting prospect. Okay, I think we can all agree, right? Yeah, one of these is proven. We know how good Lando is. And Oscar, again, everything he's done in junior tells you that he's going to be something special. It's a good looking lineup. This isn't real, by the way, just in case. It's a good Photoshop, I think. It's a good Photoshop. Is Oscar that tall? I don't know how tall Oscar is. I just guessed. So they're putting a lot on the line for this. They're putting a lot on the line. But of course, we're assuming here, and well, we're not assuming, it's being reported, and everything seems to suggest that, you know, Oscar's not going to be racing at Alpine next year. But we have had this kind of situation before where the driver thought they could go and hasn't gone and has stayed. Because at the end of 2004, we had Jenson Button versus Honda or BAR. So Button wanted to, basically, Honda BAR wanted to keep Button, but he wanted to go to Williams. Something around the engine, he wasn't happy with the engine. Like, he wanted to, whatever Williams were running at the time. Were they running Renault, whatever? So Button wanted to go to Williams. Honda wanted to keep him, contract, and the team. So Honda won out in this versus. I mean, to be fair, in this versus, Kimi definitely won because he got paid stacks for not racing. But in this instance, I mean, to be fair, Button had a good 2005. So all in all, actually, it probably worked out better for Jenson in the end. Whether it was him, whether he was advised to try and get away from BAR, hard to say. But yeah, Button wanted to get away, and the contract meant he stayed. So if this instance plays out, then Piastri, after all of this, Piastri would end up staying at Alpine, which would obviously be quite embarrassing for Piastri. Because look, there is a game that's being played here, and right now, obviously, whatever happens, it looks bad on Alpine. There's egg on their face. You know, they've managed to somehow seemingly allow this driver, who they were banking their future on, to get away, and that is on Alpine, or at least the thing is, right, even if Alpine win this, right, which I don't think is going to happen, and Piastri is contracted to that team, right, even if that happens, the fact that it's come to this and this has all happened, regardless, right, this doesn't look good on Alpine, regardless of what happens. But obviously, if it was to blow up in Oscar's face and he wasn't able to race for McLaren and had to stay at Alpine, whatever, then that obviously doesn't. It's a bit embarrassing for Oscar. So it's certainly risky. You know, the easy move in this situation is just for Oscar to, because Oscar could stay put at that team and know that he will get a seat in F1. He could stay put in that team and he knows that's going to happen. But obviously there's an opportunity at McLaren. And actually, I asked Source, trust me, bro. Hey, look, listen. I trust. I pick what and who I trust, and I trust Autosport. And if they're saying it, then for me it's you know, you got to pick your sources sometimes. But also you got to think long term as well. And the easy suggestion to make is that Ricciardo to Alpine makes sense. Okay, and look, I've fortunately through this I've been able to, you know, speak to people who work at teams and blah blah blah, and from what, you know, I've heard and who I've spoken to, and you know, people who actually work or have worked within the team, you know, I think Daniel would be welcomed back. I think Alpine really enjoyed working with him. I know Cyril was hurt, but Cyril's not there anymore. Cyril's team's gone. Otmar has said that just because of Daniel's past with the team wouldn't, like, you know, take that. And at the end of the day, it worked for Daniel. Like, he was fantastic in 2020 with Alpine. He was fantastic. So then you got to think, like, is a swap deal necessarily that bad of a thing? Because I asked you lot who you think has the most kind of long-term ambition, long-term potential. And 75, basically 3/4 of you, think that McLaren are the safer bet long-term. Which, you know what, like, there's two ways of looking at it, isn't it? You've got to remember, Alpine is a manufacturer team. So would, for example, if McLaren started beating Mercedes, would that be an issue? Would that be a problem? Would Mercedes allow that to happen if McLaren started getting too good? Also, you know, Woking, they've still not got wind tunnel yet at McLaren. It's an amazing facility. It's a beautiful facility. Much, you know, bigger and more prestigious and you know, better to look at than Enstone. But Enstone, you know, literally my video yesterday, right, about Seb's 9 in a row. Who was the team that was right up there with him? More so the team more so than Ferrari. It was Fernando was carrying Ferrari that season. Let's be real. It was Enstone. It was Lotus with Kimi and Roman at the wheel. And Zach Brown, Laurent Rossi. I mean, look, Laurent Rossi. There's not been the, you know, you got to look at the departures. Also, you got to think, you know, Rossi, as far as I'm aware, he handles the contract. He's the equivalent to Zach Brown at Alpine. He handles the contracts. I got a lot of love for Zach. I don't know too much about Laurent, but what I've heard hasn't necessarily been the best. And then obviously Andreas Seidel, Otmar Safnauer, kind of similar roles. You know I love these two. I got a lot of love for both Otmar and Andreas. I think ultimately, like, you can fairly criticise Otmar for maybe there's a few quotes where he's been quite dismissive of Fernando, which I didn't think was fair, because he has been mad unlucky this year, and it's mostly been not Fernando's fault. It's not always been the team's fault necessarily, like getting caught up in incidents, whatever. But I think it has been more of the bad luck has come from the car letting Fernando down than it has been Fernando letting himself down. So you can say that, but I think Otmar's a fantastic team principal. I really do. And I think it's easy to give him slack, but he's not even been there that long. He's been there, half a season. But also, you know, I love Andreas Seidel. So, got a lot of love for my boy Andreas. So, yeah, I mean, Alpine have always talked the talk. You've also got to think, you know, McLaren engine deal, potentially Porsche coming in. Audi as well. Right now they're very close, Alpine and McLaren, and I feel like that will continue going forward. Do I think it's a bad move for Daniel to go back to Alpine? I think that's the best move he can hope for right now. that Alpine would want him back. He's driven alongside Ocon before. He knows the team. He knows the personnel. He knows how to succeed with that team. That team knows how to get the best out of Daniel. And whether they've got the car right now to give it to him for him to be quick, I don't know. But I think that Daniel, needs to, again, because the word is that he has been officially told now. McLaren has officially told Autosport understands, which again, I trust Autosport. Okay? That's why we're here. That's why we're here talking about it. But yeah, which team do I think has the highest skill ceiling? Because the thing is, being a customer team, I mean, Red Bull won, all four with Seb, with a Renault in the back of it. So, I just think that that's not necessarily a death sentence as such. Obviously, McLaren are making a lot of driver moves at the minute. They're also like, let's be real, because there's talk on Twitter of Felix Rosenqvist. What's going on with Rosenqvist actually? So Rosenqvist is a McLaren IndyCar driver. What's the? Let's get this screen share. This from the race. Big up the race, Luke, if you're still here. Not Autosport. So what's going on with Felix in IndyCar? Oh look, it's my desk. Hello, desk. Reportedly hasn't signed a contract with McLaren Racing despite the team announcing he had in June. Okay. So now we've got 3 instances of McLaren contract drama. Like, there's no smoke without fire. Like, come on. Now, again, look, if it's all above board with Piastri, look, at the end of the day, the contract will dictate the legality of the contract. And again, F1 has their own contract advisory board. That will dictate whether it's good or not. Okay? But if McLaren are caught in 3 of these situations, right? 3 times. 3. Palou, Rosenqvist, Piastri. It's not the best look. It's not the best look. But it remains to be seen. So, yeah. The title speaks for itself. Again, Autosport officially told Ricciardo that it intends to replace him with Ricciardo. Ricciardo replaced with Ricciardo. Ricciardo replaced with Piastri. But yeah, hang on. Let's get the full. Boom. There we go. That works in this little space here. There we go. Lovely. Nice. All right. I've said my bit. Let's go through the old super chats, because I've been neglecting you lot on super chats, and yeah, just sit here for a bit longer. Maybe see if you've got any good suggestions, chat. All right. Because sometimes you do. Sometimes you lot are just weird. You just come out with some weird things. But sometimes you're actually quite clever. Super chat bias, exactly. Always super chat bias. Thank you, Twinbee, for the 79,000 something. I don't know what that is, but thank you. This year's driver transfer drama is crazier than World Drivers' Championship battle between Leclerc and Max. Unfortunately, it kind of is. Because the actual title challenge has kind of fallen by the wayside, mainly because of Ferrari's incompetence. It should be closer than it is at the top, and it isn't. And it's kind of taken away from the championship battle a bit, hasn't it? Thank you, Brady, for the $5, mate. Do you think this will affect Ricciardo's performances for the rest of the year? You gotta think, right? Given everything that's transpired, and again, look, I'm sure, and McLaren haven't made a statement for a reason, right? McLaren wanted this all to go on behind closed doors. But as soon as not only Alpine make their driver announcement, but as soon as Oscar refutes it, all of a sudden, that just opens up the gates and boom. You know what I mean? Like, everything's going to go off. Look, I just think that it's a shame that these things couldn't have been kept under, lock and key for Daniel, because it can't be nice, basically hearing about your future playing out through a bunch of tweets and everyone going mad and reacting to it, because it is crazy. You know what I mean? It's crazy news, and the way it's all transpired has not been ideal for anyone, but that's the way it's gone. Will it affect his performances for the rest of the year? I mean, again, I can't, if Daniel's not in that seat next year, you've got to wonder where that incentive for Daniel is to really push and discover where the performance is. I think he'll be ultimately sitting in with Alpine a lot, because he would be, this is just assuming, again, we're just assuming that Daniel goes to Alpine, which would make a lot of sense. But also, like, I don't know, man. I think whether Ricciardo goes to Alpine, whether he goes to another team, wherever he stays, is such an incredibly, like, human decision for him to have to make. Such a personal decision for him to have to make. He got criticised for leaving Red Bull, which, I was like, fair enough. Gone to Alpine, was doing well, then decided to jump, and it felt that, it felt at the time that, okay, like, McLaren seems to have, probably in a better place moving forward than Alpine. But when you break it down, like, you look at the Alpine pace this year, I think over the course of the season so far, the Alpine's been the quicker car. We are thinking long-term here. This is very much like a long-term thing, right? You can't hedge your bets on, where the teams are right now, where the teams are going to be next year. It's got to be like, where they're going to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time. And yeah, I just think that Daniel's performances haven't been great this year. And especially if it's confirmed that he's going, which, again, the teams has now told you that they don't want you for next year, basically. And also, to be honest, like, I don't, because I know Andreas Seidel's talked quite positively, like, we want Daniel, we want him to stay. But at the end of the day, this is not Andreas Seidel's choice. I'm sure he's factored in to the decision making, but it's not his choice. That's going to ultimately be Zach Brown's choice, and members of the board, perhaps. If you think it's fake, go check Autosport yourself. Yeah, it's mad. Thank you, Alex, for the 5. Felix Rosenqvist, exactly. Yeah, Alex, mate. It's 3 instances of it now. 3. All McLaren. It's mad. It's mad. Thank you, Phil. What if Piastri literally chokes and has mediocre results? That would be the largest mistake ever by a new driver. The fallout would be insane. This is a good point, Phil, you bring up, right? Because I think all of this talk, all of this silly season, right? All of this chat, it's doing a lot for the Oscar Piastri brand. It's making him more, he's a bigger name because of this. Going forward, what it does do is put a lot more pressure. And there's always pressure on rookies coming in. But given all of this noise that's been going on this last week, right? And all the money we know that, look, if this does all transpire as it looks like it's going to, where McLaren have to pay Daniel off to not race in 2023, We all know this is costing McLaren a lot of money. They are putting a lot of trust, kind of like they did with Ricciardo. They're taking a punt here on a rookie who's shown incredible levels in junior formulas. Will he deliver? Will the car suit him? Blah, blah, blah. There's going to be a lot of pressure for him to hit the ground running when he starts, which, again, he's done a lot of mileage in an F1 car, in the Alpine F1 car, not the McLaren F1 car. And it's in McLaren's best interest. It was in their best interest to make Daniel Ricciardo work. It's even more so now to make Oscar Piastri work. Because if they can't, then, letting Carlos Sainz get away is a huge, looking back, that is a huge mistake. So, look, it's a punt. There's a lot of unknowns. Also, I'm not being funny. Any driver transfers a punt, right? Did Ricciardo look like a risky punt? Punt, by the way. Punt. P-U-N-T. Did Ricciardo look like a risky punt when they signed him from Alpine? From Renault, sorry. After his 2020 season? After his fantastic Red Bull career? Be honest, he didn't. He didn't. No. I would be... The general consensus, 100%, was that Daniel Ricciardo is going to slot in that team and do a very good job. 100%. 100%. Don't tell me you were like, oh, I saw this coming. Daniel was going to be terrible at McLaren. No. The overwhelming majority, including McLaren, thought this was going to work, and it didn't work. So there's always a chance it won't work. But if they want a driver pairing for the future... And it just felt like this indicates that McLaren don't think they're ever going to be able to get that car operating in a window where Danny can make it work. But they've got to hope that they can make... there's a relationship there. Andreas Seidel, Mark Webber, Porsche. There is a relationship there. You've got to hope that McLaren have enough data to be confident that Piastri is going to be able to maximise this car. That's all I'll say. Thank you, Hopped Up. Why do you think Piastri is so keen to go to McLaren? Well, it's a fair point. Again, you've got a... I think obviously in part it's because Alpine... It's clear now that Alpine wanted Alonso Ocon for next year. That is now obvious, right? They wanted to keep Piastri. They didn't want Piastri in that team. Not they didn't want him in the team, but they were very happy with the levels that Ocon and Alonso were producing. Plus, I'm sure the French... I think Ocon's done a really good job. I don't think you can say Ocon's done a bad job when he's against Fernando Alonso. You know what I mean? I think there's too much unfair criticism of Ocon in my mind. But so I think it's fair keeping Ocon. I think Ocon Piastri as a long-term driver pairing is a really strong one. But surely Piastri's not going to McLaren, because there were talkers like he'll go to McLaren and be a reserve driver for a year and then jump into the seat in 2024. I was just like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? It's not like you're going from a Williams to a Mercedes. Right now, and I feel like for the foreseeable, they are pretty similar level, like for like. I think the ceilings are in quite similar places. If anything, I probably would say I think the Alpine ceiling is a bit higher just because they're a constructor. So I think it's all about having a race seat next year. But again, McLaren aren't going to sign him. Like McLaren knew what it would cost to sign Oscar Piastri for 2023. They knew what that would cost, and it would cost paying Ricciardo's contract out, so it seems. I know Zach Brown's talked about mechanisms in place. Maybe there's some kind of mechanism, some kind of lever that can be pulled, some kind of button that can be pressed to... Maybe Zach Brown's got like a trap door in his office that, if you walk onto that just walk over there, Daniel. Here you go. Maybe. Thank you, the Terse Verse, for the 200 rupees. Imagine if Ricciardo fights for championship next year and beats both McLaren's. Lamau, how cathartic. The thing is, right, this is what I mean. It's all well and good having talent as a race car driver. You need, just like anything, and this is the point I kind of emphasised on my Sebastian Vettel video that I put out yesterday, which you should watch if you haven't watched it already, is that to win championships consistently, it's not just good enough to have a good car. It's not just good enough to have a good driver. You need that perfect blend of driver, feel, that natural. I talked about it when I did my podcast with Johnny Herbert. He was like, after his incident, there was only one time ever in F1, it wasn't even a race he won, that he felt at one with his car. And I think it's that just natural kind of almost autopilot that you can get into. When you've got that in a quick package with a quick driver on autopilot, that's difficult to beat. And I think that's what Seb achieved in that 2013 and 2011 particularly as well. In that Red Bull over those 4 years, he achieved that. Lewis achieved that in the Mercedes. Michael Schumacher achieved that in his Ferrari. Senna, Prost, whoever. Drivers throughout history who have achieved that level of... And I think Daniel has shown at times that he can drive at those levels in that Red Bull. We saw that. In that Renault, I think, in his second season, we saw that. And I think at times, at very, very occasional times in the McLaren in Monza, he was just able to go into autopilot. He's been here before. Do the job. And he did it. So, I really hope, I've got a lot of love for Daniel. You know this. Who doesn't like Daniel Ricciardo? If you don't, you're playing yourself. And I want him to get back to those levels. Because I do miss seeing that man on the podium. Because I think he's a good enough driver. And again, we've talked about this with Vettel. Did Sebastian's clear talent disappear when he got beaten by Ricciardo in 2014 or when he got beaten by Leclerc in 2020? No, the talent has always been there. It's just finding that package, that facility, that car, that environment, where everything clicks and everything works. That's what's difficult to find. And that's where these certain few drivers will be able to find that and really run with it, Citrus, thank you for the €10, mate. There's something extremely wrong within Alpine team. Cyril out, Prost out, Ricciardo out, Alonso out, Piastri out, all within less than 2 years. I don't know, but it seems like no one wants to drive for them. Well, look, so Cyril out was a... The thing is, right, whether it's... was it... who's the top dog at Renault? Who sometimes come to races? I can't remember his name. Cyril, obviously, he was dropped. Again, I can't really sit here and we can only critique the things we see from the team principals. But at the end of the day, team principals do far more stuff that goes behind the scenes that we will never even see. No, Luca Di Maio, that's it. Luca Di Maio. Not Laurent Rossi. Luca Di Maio. Luca Di Mayonnaise. There's far more stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Prost, I feel like Prost, he was more of kind of a figurehead, a presence. In the same way, the way I understand how Prost's role at Alpine /Renault was similar to Niki Lauda's role at Mercedes, I feel. So, not in terms of responsibility, not given much in the way of responsibility, but a presence to have in the garage, someone to talk to, someone to bounce ideas off, and just having that world championship winning pedigree in the garage, I don't think can be a bad thing. Maybe Prost wanted more input and Laurent Rossi wasn't wanting to give it to him. Again, we don't know. Obviously, Ricciardo, that is, yeah. It all comes down to me to Ricciardo leaving Renault in the first place as being the big error, because that Enstone based team have delivered podium sitting cars like a lot. They've produced a lot of cars that can get on a podium throughout the last, I'm just thinking the last like 20 years. Like they've produced cars that can win titles. They've produced cars that can consistently sit on podiums. Again, like before Seb won 9 in a row in 2013, Kimi was second in the Lotus. Grosjean got tons of podiums. Again, watch my video. Grosjean smashed it. You know, it's just... They've got good facility there. It just feels like they've never quite reached the potential, delivered on the potential that they have. It was a great livery as well. Much better rendition than we saw in the 2019 Haas. And yeah, now Piastri out, which again, this Piastri out is Alpine needed to make him it just feels like there's just been, the communication here hasn't been great, you know, like internally. Like I've said this, you know, no matter how well Fernando's driving, you've got to make a decision. You can't play with a driver like Piastri of his potential. He's going to get snapped up. And we talked about this before. He's going to get snapped up by someone else if you're not careful. And that's exactly what seems to have transpired. You know, obviously now they're like, oh God, we wish we'd just dropped Alonso earlier because, you know. And look, I think Fernando's entitled to do whatever he does at the minute, and the responsibility sits with Alpine. Do I think Alonso knew about what was going on with like Piastri potentially going? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. And again, like Fernando, it looked like they were trying to kind of line him up just to kind of keep the seat warm. You know, Alpine were never going to give Fernando, even if Alpine had produced a title-winning car, I don't think Alpine were ever going to give Fernando a chance to drive that title-winning car. They'd use him to, which they're entitled to do. They're entitled to use the resource they have available to. But you're not going to see an Alpine title-winning car title-challenging car until, 2024 at the earliest, as far as I'm concerned. I think that's too much to expect. So I think, you know, I think now that it's happened, I think the Alonso move actually does make quite a lot of sense for Fernando because he was probably paid a lot of money. They can guarantee that, you know what, like, we want you. And if we're able to develop a title-winning car, you'll be able to drive it. Whereas, like, I don't think Alpine can make that same promise to Fernando. So I think it's probably a combination of money and a combination of that, you know? Because Aston Martin don't have this shit-hot young talent waiting in the wings that everyone wants to sniff at. And McLaren have proved that. So it's interesting, isn't it? It's just so much goes on behind the scenes that we will just have we will just talk about these things and we haven't got Scooby. But I try my best, okay? Thank you, Lucas, mate. If it were to happen, Daniel to Williams would be baffling. Well, so Daniel to Williams would be a fantastic statement of intent for Williams going forward. I think Albon Ricciardo would be a sick little lineup. It's almost like the problem that, obviously, Williams have got Logan Sargent coming through, who's looking very promising. I think that, I don't know, there's, yeah, I suppose Alpine have got some good young drivers coming through. You just can't, like, at the end of the day, as long as you're performing, your seat should be safe. I think because Fernando is 41, even though he is performing, that's why his seat wasn't safe. At the end of the day, I think, you know, you can't look at a 41 year-old F1 driver, even Fernando Alonso driving as well as he can, versus a kid who's 21, who's lit up all the junior series, who's really in demand. And you can't say, look, obviously Piastri is going to have a longer career in racing than Fernando, okay? So it's like, it's a difficult thing to balance up because Alonso's been driving like a top talent. You know what I mean? So I just think that you can justify a lot of decisions. If I'm Williams, am I signing Daniel Ricciardo? If I'm Williams, I'm probably not, because you've got to pay a lot of money for him. Having a driver like him in your car raises expectations, and I think Williams could maybe do without that and just kind of keep things measured and slowly build, because they are still quite a way off, clearly. So I probably wouldn't, if I was Williams, I wouldn't go for Ricciardo. Commercially, he would be massive, of course. That is a factor. But I probably wouldn't if I was Williams. I'd probably steer clear, to be honest. But yeah. Thank you, James. Rick to Alpine for 1 year while they look good at their options. Can extend if he's good. Look, again, I think it's, how we've learned now how Sebastian Vettel, what his motivations, what his priorities are now in life, and he's acted on them and decided it's his time to retire, right? And again, I just think it's, Daniel, how much of his life is Formula One? We know he does other things. We know he keeps himself busy away from the racing car. Is he interested in doing different series, blah, blah, blah. I still think if he goes back to Alpine, there is a good chance that they could produce a good car, because I think Alpine are, they've got the facility, they've got the staff. Sure, there's been a bit of managerial incompetence, but I think that, they could make that. I think Daniel could have still a really good career at Alpine and kind of repair some of this damage that's been done to his reputation since he's been at McLaren. Yeah, I think that's the right move for Daniel, to just go back to Alpine. I think that's the right move. Thank you, Oscar. Danny Rick to Alpha and Gasly to Alpine. No, Danny Rick is not going to go to AlphaTauri. Gasly to Alpine. I mean, if they really want to go full Allez Bleu, then maybe I've talked about Gasly for the Aston Martin seat. I still think that would have been a great shout for the Aston Martin seat. Gasly to Alpine would be very French, for sure. I've talked about that in the past, to bring the great French team, French marquee, all based in England, by the way. Come on, England. Thank you, Chevro, for the $5. Wouldn't it be brilliant if Daniel decided to start dive bombing people left and right to get podiums, even a win in the second half? Well, as a big F you. I mean, he should be driving that like that anyway, Chevro. He should be dive bombing. That's what he's meant to be doing. That's his thing. Ocon on. Yeah, look, I said this in my Ocon versus Gasly video. Because they've got a bit of beef there, but I'm sure they could. I'm sure if they dealt with their issues, they could find a way through it. Thank you, Isaiah. As much as it looks like Alpine will go for a younger driver, it still feels like Ricciardo going back still isn't off the cards. Yeah. No, I'd agree. And Otmar's literally come out and said the future wouldn't affect whether they would re-sign Daniel Ricciardo. So Otmar's already talked about that openly as a prospect, which I think says a lot. Thank you, Jos. McLaren betted on Hamilton performing, and he did. They did, exactly. You look at Lewis Hamilton's junior career before McLaren signed him. Was pretty special. Took him on. Gave him over a whole F1 season's worth of testing, because you could back then, and hit the ground running, and finished ahead of, joint on points for Fernando Alonso in his first year. So that's the thing. You've got a, and Hamilton took a bet on Mercedes. It can go both ways. Teams take bets on drivers. Drivers take bets on teams. And sometimes it'll pay off, and you'll look like a genius. You look like a rock star, as Gunter would say. And if it doesn't, you look like a wanker. But there you go. Thank you, Lucas. Realistically, Daniel has 3 options: stay in McLaren or move to either Alpine or Williams. And again, I don't think Williams is the right move. Would I be gassed to see it? a Ricciardo Albon, I'd be Williams merch. I'd be full one. They're like my two favourite drivers. So like I would go all in on Williams if that happened. But do I think it's the right choice for Williams, for Daniel? I would say no. Thank you, Zofa. Takumi Fujiwara. To McLaren. Don't know who that is, but thank you. Just him. Thank you, Hassan. Alpine and McLaren looking ugly right now. Their business ethics and loyalties are pretty sus. I mean, it's sus because you got to wonder as well how much. I do wonder, right? How many times things like this have happened where there's like contract disputes and a driver thinking you're gonna, but it's just not come out publicly. I bet this has happened, not all the time, but I reckon this has happened fairly. I've never watched Initial D, sorry. I reckon this happens. I don't think this is uncommon. But because it's all come out publicly, because Alpine seemingly felt under pressure and were like, cool, we're just going to announce him and we're just going to get... I would love to have been in the room with the person who typed that Alpine tweet and was just hovering over the send button. Just like, oh, do I do it? Otmar's like, do it, go on. Lauren Rossi's like, yes, send the tweets. Bonk. Gone. Just, let's see what Oscar says. Maybe just like, like Ant and Dex Saturday Night Takeaway when they're in the earpiece. Oh, man. Crazy. Thank you, Struggle, for the $4.99. Apparently, Palou's lawyer said that Chip Ganassi lawsuit kept Alex from an F1 opportunity. You think the plan was originally Palou before looking at Piastri? I think that, look, Alex Palou is still only 25. I think Piastri is worth taking this risk on to pay Daniel for a whole season to not race, seemingly. That's what seems like is going to happen. I don't think Palou is worth taking that same risk on, if you get what I mean. I don't think Palou... Yeah. I think Piastri is worth taking that risk on because he is in F1. He's been with Alpine for a whole year. He's done loads of testing in an F1 car. He's young. He's quite a bit younger than Alex Palou as well. I think he's worth taking that risk on, worth taking that punt on. I think Palou, McLaren would be spending a huge amount of money for someone who's not driven an F1 car before. I just feel like there's enough. There's enough in Piastri's corner to make that punt worthwhile. Thank you, Rashab. You blabber too much without any new perspective. Thank you for the 40 rupees, Rashad. I will continue to blabber just for you, mate. Thank you, Kowalkin, for the 49. German newspaper saying Haas suspended negotiations with Schumacher. Could Haas be replacing him with Ricciardo? Marcus Ericsson tweet true. There is talk at the minute of Schumacher potentially being... This is all just rumours. This is much less substantiated than what we're seeing on screen right now. Yeah, like around Schumacher potentially replacing... Schumacher potentially leaving the Ferrari Driver Academy and maybe moving somewhere. Again, I still don't think Schumacher's really shown enough to make him a real appealing prospect, in my opinion, to another team. I don't think I've seen enough from Schumacher to be confident in an idea of a Schumacher going to somewhere else. But again, like Schumacher to Alpine, I don't know. Schumacher to Williams, I don't know. That doesn't like massively excite me, the prospect. But maybe. Thank you, Billy. Renault Driver Academy is really looking like a career dead end now, especially now that Alpine have lost their star youth talent. It's we've got Jack Doohan. Who else we've got? an Alpine driver academy? I can't actually remember. Jack Doohan's like the most high profile of the Alpine academy kids. Obviously, you've got like Théo Pourchaire, who's Sauber academy, but maybe like he's French. I don't know if that's, Alpine could be considering seeing if they can chuck a bunch of money at Sauber to get him over, because he's looking like at least a P2 finish in F2 this year, as things stand anyway. Calculette as well. He won in F3, didn't he? Victor Martins, yeah, he's F3 as well, isn't he? I thought Victor Martins was pretty strong, and I feel like he's kind of stuttered a little bit. But yeah, it's not. No, it can't be like. It must be a bit frustrating if you're an Alpine Academy driver looking at all this situation. But then also, Oscar's gone and Fernando's gone, so maybe that's more of a window in as well. Maybe that's there's an opportunity now. Jack Doohan's like, I'm ready, Otmar. I'm ready. I'm Australian. All right? Like Daniel Ricciardo. But I'm already one of you, and I didn't leave you. So hire me, yeah? Cheers. Bye. Thank you, Lucas. Daniel might call it quits if he can't find what he wants in F1 team. Exactly. Maybe he will. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. Maybe he will. But maybe he won't. Thank you again, Alex, for the $20, mate. Very, very generous. When Alonso drove the Indy 500 in 2019 with McLaren, after it was reported, he told Zach Brown to sign Pato O'Ward because he was special, and it proved right. Maybe Fred gave Zach a heads up with Oscar contract. Yeah, I wonder how many heads ups were given. None to Alpine, it seems. None to Alpine. Yeah, obviously Fernando's got that relationship with McLaren. Maybe that factored in. I don't know. Obviously, yeah. Piastri wanted to go to McLaren, so Alonso kept Stum because he still has a good relationship with McLaren. I don't know. Now, Oliver, I mean, like, Martins was in it last year as well, wasn't he? Well, isn't this Calculette's first season in F3? I think it is. But anyway, from what I've seen, I've been a bit more impressed by Colette, personally. Nismo, thank you. What about Pato and Colton? Yeah, I mean, this kind of... The Piastri news kind of shuts the door. You do wonder what promises were made to Pato O'Ward and Colton Herta, if any. Oh, it's Colette second, fair enough. Yeah, you do wonder like what promises were made, obviously signing Colton. If you're going to sign Colton for your like young driver program, but then obviously F1 seats are going to be 23-year-old Lando Norris, or 22, I can't remember, and 21-year-old Oscar Piastri. Like, I mean, that is as a baby as a driver lineup gets, really. So, but obviously, yeah, McLaren doing Formula E, so I wouldn't see... I could see like Colton Herta doing Formula E, because you feel like he's done IndyCar now. Like he's achieved a lot in IndyCar. Maybe that's a potential. Waiting for McLaren World Endurance Team to start up as well. Thank you, Sudan. Do you think there's an option for McLaren to pay off Danny? Yes. Takes a year or two and make grand return. What are your thoughts? Well, yeah, I do wonder, like, yeah, if McLaren have to pay Daniel off, is Daniel still allowed? I don't see why he wouldn't still be allowed to race in Formula 1 for a different team. So I don't think Daniel will go out of the sport. Because I think if Daniel goes out of the sport, unfortunately, I don't think he finds a way back in. Because he would have left on a low. I think if you leave on a high, kind of like Kimi Raikkonen, when he went away, 2009 wasn't a terrible season. Like he'd won a world title in 2007. Like I think Ricciardo, and the driver market was different back then. I think there were mechanisms for Raikkonen to get his way back in. I don't know if Ricciardo gets back in if he does leave, Thank you, Caligals. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Big up Alan McDonald. No sports person ever represented Australia more authentically than Daniel Ricciardo. He represents everything good in the Australian character. Can't argue with that, Alan. Can't argue with that. Daniel's been a great, a great carrier of the sport. I'm not saying he's carried the sport, but the way he's carried himself and represented Formula One has been Tim Cahill. Another legend. Yeah, man. I think Daniel's been a true, ambassador's a good word. Ambassador's a very good word. He's represented the sport fantastically, and his character and personality is pretty one of a kind. It is pretty one of a kind. Thank you, Akil. Daniel takes Ferrari's seat in 2024, wins the World Drivers' Championship. No, Daniel has to replace the strategists at Ferrari. Okay, that's the only chance. That's the only chance Ferrari win a World Drivers' Championship. Bataran, Cem Bollet-Bassi to Alpine confirmed. Cem actually had a good last race, didn't he? He was pretty solid last race. Folha, mate, thank you. Alpine will replace Alonso with Ricciardo and Piastri as a reserve driver with Antonio Felix da Costa. Heard it here first. Wait, Ricciardo. Wait, so Piastri stays as a reserve driver at Alpine because the contract, he can't get out of the contract. And then Antonio Felix da Costa takes... Folha, mate, I mean, fair enough. Whatever you've been smoking, though, let me know. Zhang, thank you for the 5 New Zealand, mate. Appreciate it. The scenario, Gasly terminates his contract with AlphaTauri. Alpine double Frenchman in 2023. I think Alpine would be silly to not approach Pierre. I think that's worth a conversation at the very least. Because I think long term, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon at Alpine, that's something I could be excited by. Mark Noble to Alpine, imagine. Thank you again, Alex. Also, McLaren bought out an IndyCar driver to sign Pato, so they've done this before. Did they? I didn't know that. So McLaren bought out, paid off someone so that they could put Pato in. Because what was the McLaren Arrow team before it was McLaren Arrow? Because they bought a team, didn't they? I can't actually remember which team it was, but I know that they did buy a team out. But yeah. And thank you, Yana. Do you think Piastri might struggle to adapt his driving style to McLaren like how Ricciardo struggled? The thing is, Piastri's only driven last year's Alpine. He's not even done an FP1. This is the thing. This is a good one as well, right? We were just assuming that both FP1 runouts were going to be Oscar Piastri in the Alpine. Who do Alpine give their FP1 runouts to now? I don't know. Schmidt Peterson. There you go. There you go. Who do they be doing, wouldn't it? Yeah. But I think they would have much rather given it to the driver that was going to be in that seat next year, which was going to be Oscar Piastri. But yeah, I'd love to see them give it to Felipe Drugovich. Maybe sign Felipe Alpine. Drugovich, Ocon next year. Maybe. God, we've gone over an hour, man. Jesus. I wasn't planning on streaming this long. But thank you all for coming. Thank you all for staying and listening to me waffle. Look, listen, this is what you signed up for, all right? This is what you've signed up for, I'm afraid. If you don't like it, then it's fine. But that's what I do. It's my thing. Thank you to Shah. It's potentially a blessing in disguise for Ricciardo. If he wants to stay in F1 beyond next year, he should take the Alpine seat and rebuild his reputation. At McLaren would have only ended up with Lando smashing him again next year. It's a reasonable point. Because as much as I want things to improve for Daniel, was there any indication that things were getting better and moving in a good direction? No. Could things change? Yes. But it's like a dream scenario is you've got two drivers that both can extract, the potential out of a type of car. The worst case scenario is you've got two drivers at the same team who have very different styles, and one really can and one really can't. That feel like they need. McLaren need another Lando Norris, and that's what they're hoping Oscar Piastri can be, another Lando. And if anything, Piastri. You look at Piastri's junior career, especially in junior formulas, has been, like, just looking at the stats, has been more impressive than Lando's. Lando didn't win anything in single-seaters. He won plenty in karts, but I don't think he won anything in single-seaters. I might be wrong. Whereas Oscar won 3 championships in single-seaters. So, but then Max didn't win anything in single-seaters either, did he? He won loads in karts, but then he came second to Ocon in F3 and then went straight up to F1. Did Lando win F3? I didn't know that. I didn't know that Lando won F3. There you go. But yeah, potentially, competition might not have been as tough for Piastri, but potentially. But you don't win 3 championships on the bounce for nothing. And also, I think the Max Verstappen comparison is like, that was such a ridiculous situation. Like, he did 1 season in F3 and then straight to F1. It's mad. Mad. Dr. Shogi, thank you, mate. Do you have any statements from any driver team involved? Again, Autosport are reporting this. This is what they're reporting. And, I mean, they're about as reliable as a source gets. I know people like to shit on F1 media, but Autosport are typically pretty spot on. Shout out Luke Smith, friend of the channel. Thank you, Caligals. I still honestly think that Albon is here we go. I can get on board with this content. I still honestly think that Albon is a top 5-6 driver. I can't understand why he didn't get a better seat than Williams. Wow. Like, I love Alex. Do I think he's a top 5-6 driver? No. But I appreciate the respect for Alex Albon. Okay? Caligals, thank you. Zach owns Autosport. No, he doesn't. Zach Brown doesn't own Autosport. What are you talking about? Thank you, Twisted Drift. As an Australian, it's been a roller coaster of a week. I'm sad that it's a strong possibility that Daniel's gone, but excited to see us. It's kind of like passing of the torch, It's like passing of the torch. It is sad though. You wish that. Hopefully, they can find a way. Of Ricciardo to Alpine would just be so that it'd just be so smooth, Boom, you go there, Piastri, you come here. Let's see how it plays out. Let's see how it plays out long term. Thank you, Luke. As an Aussie, it feels like the F1 gods are playing with my emotions, bringing in another Aussie for the potential sacrifice of Ricciardo. Let both of you. This to say, it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah, man. Like, I feel like this is quite big news in Australia as well. The fact that part of my live stream made it on the telly, for crying out loud. Like, Jesus Christ, come on. If they're that desperate for content. Thank you, Tom McKee, mate. Appreciate it. Thank you, Nismo, again. Being an Aussie, this is another being an Aussie comment. What is this? Being Aussie, this is all hard to take. We love Dan, but the results haven't come except Monza. Oscar is another level. He needs his chance. He does need his chance. When you do that well in junior formulas, you have to be given a chance. You have to be given an opportunity. That's like, it must have been quite disheartening for a lot of young drivers looking at Oscar win Formula Regional, win F3, win F2, and then still not get a seat. That must have been difficult. Well, the fact that there's Australians watching at this time, I think, says that how much how painful this has been for the Australian F1 fans. So I see you. Okay, I'm here for you. All right, I've got family in Australia, so I'm basically kind of a bit Australian. not blood Aussie, but well, no, the family are blood family, but they moved from the UK. Whatever. My cousins are full Australians. They are 100% Australians because they were born there. So big up Australia. Is it only 11 p.m.? Okay, I suppose it's only 11, to be fair. Okay. Go to bed soon, all right? Thank you again, Zhang. Do you still think Otmar is an iconic principal? Look, I know people are having a pop at Otmar right now, but honestly, he's only been at that team since the start of this year, right? He was still like... And he's not the man who negotiates the contracts, right? You can criticise Otmar, and I don't know what his relationship with Fernando's like, right? It seemed okay, but also, you got to be honest, Fernando doesn't seem like the easiest character to manage, right? When it's going great, it's fantastic. But when things start to falter and there's cracks, Fernando's like a tough customer to deal with. So I don't think you can like be too hard on Otmar through this. I really don't. I think the buck more stops with Laurent Rossi. That's the way I'm seeing it. Because it's not, as far as I'm aware, it's not, in this instance, it's not the team principal's job to negotiate the contract. So thank you, the Horsecock Express. Great name. Hope Dan does well wherever he goes. Don't we all? Ben, Xbox Fortress. Chadwick deserves a chance. Look, you know I've got a lot of love for Jamie. At the end of the day, she's won back-to-back and probably to-back W Series. Do I think it's competitive enough of a championship to showcase that you've got the ability to drive an F1? No. Do I think she should get an F3 seat? I'd love to see her in F3. These cars W Series cars are pretty similar to F3 cars. They're basically like simplified F3 cars. Would love to see that. She definitely... I'm optimistic because now she's got this kind of support from Caitlyn Jenner, obviously big pockets. Get her an F3 seat next year. See how she does. I don't think a jump from straight into F1 is the right move. I think ultimately, like, we want, I hope Jamie's got the potential to get there, but we haven't seen enough so far. But hopefully she gets an opportunity to prove. Cheers, Native Joel, for the $5. Have you not learned anything over the years? First year driver almost never succeeds in a high quality car. Ricciardo better than Piastri. The thing is though, Joel, this is clearly from McLaren a long-term move, isn't it? Like, you don't get as much testing as you used to back in the day, so it's going to be harder for Piastri to have time to get used to the car compared to if this was all happening like 20 years ago. 2002. How was 2002 20 years ago? Jesus Christ. If this like you could just test to your heart's content. You can just test like mad, right? You can't do that anymore. But it's clearly it's a long-term roll of the dice, and ultimately, Ricciardo's not delivering at the minute, so there's not much for McLaren to lose, apart from a lot of money to pay him off. Oh man! Thank you, Nismo, again. We are watching and we love it from. Oh, I think I've been to Wollongong in New South Wales. Your family's from Derby, nice. I think I've been past. I remember seeing a sign for Wollongong and thinking that's a cool place now. Mr. Boast, your city prediction next year. My city prediction next year is that I do even more live streams. Right, okay. Well, look, here we are. I'm just going to quickly... Has there been any more I've been doing this stream for over an hour now, so I'm assuming there's no more news that's kind of dropped since I've been streaming, I guess. I can't seem to see anything new, so yeah, cool. Right, we're going to wrap it there. Thank you, everyone. This was fun. I like these. Sometimes these streams, they could just be a bit more of a chat, Why do people keep saying that Zach Brown owns Autosport? Does he? I mean, if he does, that gives even more credit. I can't. United Autosports. Yeah, that's a race team, not Autosport the magazine. That's different. Anyway, sorry, Minton's downstairs. Afraid not. So, Ricciardo's in NASCAR with Raikkonen at Trackhouse. That would be sick. And 427 LS7. Do you think Tsunoda remains in F1 next year? Yes, I do. I think Tsunoda remains in F1 next year. I do. Ricciardo, the unfunniest on the grid. That is not true. He's hilarious. Right. So there you go. Basically, it feels like the end is nigh for Daniel, and he will get paid off by McLaren. He's not been confirmed by the team yet, but Autosport are advertising it. I've put it in print. And it looks like the contract between Piastri and McLaren is sound from what we've seen. But we will see, won't we? So yeah, thank you all for coming. I streamed 4 days out of 5, and then I put a video out yesterday. So you don't tell me I don't deliver the content, all right? Don't tell me that ever. No, we'll see. Have a good weekend, everyone. Be well. We should be able to rest. Shouldn't get any news over the weekend, and then back at it again on Monday next week. But yeah, cheers everyone for coming. Thank you all. Be well, be happy. Like the stream, subscribe, all that stuff. All right, helps me out. Almost at 100k on Twitter, so follow me on Twitter. I literally need to thank Piastri and Alonso and Webber and Vettel. When I'm going to hit 100k, because all of this drama has helped. I'm not going to lie. Right, cheers everyone. Stay safe, be well, be happy. Stay hydrated. Goodbye.